Welcome to the Rochelle Christian Podcast, formerly the Emotional Mastery Podcast. I'm Rochelle, your host. I'm here to help you come back to your body, take charge of your emotions, and live life on your terms. This podcast is a space for raw, real conversations about what it means to trust yourself, lean into your power, and create a life that feels aligned and alive. We'll explore human design, astrology, and other tools to help you understand your unique energy. More importantly, though, we're going to talk about what it means to actually live and embody these aspects. So each week, I'm going to share stories, lessons, guidance to help you navigate life's challenges and really own your magic. So if you're ready to step up, take control, and show up as the most authentic version of you, let's begin. Normally, this is the part in the podcast where I would have my little self-promo of the Holistic Human Design Self-Paced Academy, but we're going to do things a little bit different today because I'm officially launching a live round of Holistic Human Design Academy starting April 7th. Until March 28th, I am offering 20% off the live round. So this is 3 months. It is 8 modules, but we have integration time, we have Q&A time. I break up the first module in 2 weeks in the live round. And what really makes the live round unique is you. You literally bring the magic that we create together. There's support, there's accountability, 24/7 Voxer support. It is such a beautiful container. And the Holistic Human Design Academy is built on the Holistic Embodiment Blueprint. This is basically 3 major steps that I have combined together to create this magical program. So the first thing that we look at, the very first step, is our human design and astrology chart. This really creates awareness. This really gives us this languaging of pieces of ourselves that maybe we weren't so aware of. The second step is, now that we have awareness, we need to emotionally regulate because we really can't do the work from a dysregulated nervous system. And so we understand our energetics. We dive into our PHS. We understand the emotional solar plexus, whether you have it defined or undefined. We really get into the nitty gritty of like what that means. And then there are tools, practical tools and steps to continually regulate your nervous system. And in each and every weekly live call that we are going to have some somatic nervous system practice to really ground into that energy. And then the final step in here is subconscious reprogramming, deconditioning. We're taking those old narratives and we're replacing them with something more positive. We're replacing them with where you desire to go. Now, this is like a really brief synopsis of what is in here, but truly this is so magical. It is so beautiful. We go through human design, astrology, again, energetics, emotional regulation, attachment theory, the gene keys, subconscious reprogramming. It's so good. So if you are interested in joining for this live round, again, we start April 7th, but you can enter now. Cart is open. Use the code WHDA Spring, and that will get you 20% off. So instead of $555, it is currently $444 until March 28th. And this program is about so much more than just intellectual learning. This is really embodiment and beginning that deconditioning process. I cannot wait to see you. First and foremost, how is everyone feeling? There is so much going on astrologically right now. We have 3 Kazimis, Venus is retrograde, Mercury is in retrograde. The spring equinox is tomorrow as this podcast episode comes out, which means the sun is moving into Aries, which is a new season in astrology and the beginning of the entire zodiac, right? It all begins with Aries, with the first house, with this initiating sort of energy. This is a season when, Earth starts to regenerate. She starts to come alive in the springtime season. We have Neptune moving into Aries, which hasn't happened in over 160 years. So since, I believe, the 1800s. Was the last time we saw Neptune in Aries. So there's so many shifts happening. And I think that's all of it. We have 2 asteroids this week that are also they're stationing retrograde. And I'm still deepening my knowledge of asteroids. So I don't feel like I can super talk to what it means, but I do know that asteroids, every time I read one and where it is in my chart, I'm like, holy shit, this is so wild. And so I think they hold such a deep knowledge, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word I'm looking for. They offer us just something that is really, really deep inside of our charts that, once you kind of move past the basics, it's really, really beautiful energy. So I've been sort of exploring that and what that means for me specifically in my chart. I've read about Ceres and Pallas Athene and both of where they are in my charts. I'm like, oh my God, this is so wild and so accurate. And these are all like the feminine asteroids, right? The goddess asteroids, as they call them, because they're all related to Venus and the moon, because these are like the divine feminine energies within the zodiac. So yeah, so much is going on astrologically, and I don't feel like I'm ungrounded. I feel like I'm very aware of what's going on. And even though I am riding the wave, I am implementing these practices that are keeping me grounded, that are keeping me down, that are not down is in the sense of like low vibration or anything like that, but like kind of the opposite. I've really been tuning into my connection with source. Maybe it's just like a lot of Neptune energy. And that's what we're going to talk about today is Neptune, how to work with it in your chart, what it represents, just the history of it. And yeah, so I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of riding this wave. I feel like I sort of had my like tower crumbling moment in January. And even that, as I'm deepening my knowledge of the tarot and what it means, the tower is really interesting energy. And I pulled a card last night. I was like, what is my medicine for the moment? The tower came up. And this is really like when we think about this energy, it's like the tower is built upon a part of ourselves that maybe we felt like we needed to suppress, that we didn't really deal with. And the crumbling of that tower, right? Like you have that lightning strike. A lot of tarot cards show the tower with that lightning strike, but the lightning strike isn't the moment, right? Like that's sort of the beginning of the crumbling. But once we crumble the tower, then we're left with this foundation, this piece of ourselves that was so hidden deeply under there that we really need to integrate. And so that's what I really feel like maybe my big lightning bolt tower moment was back in January. But like all this now, it's like, okay, now the tower has crumbled. We are clearing away the debris. We're clearing all that away. And now we're discovering this piece of ourselves underneath that was hard to integrate, I guess, that we sort of left behind, that we didn't allow to like come forth. And to me, it really feels like what I've been integrating and what I've been meeting and facing has been this really soft feminine side of myself, this very, I don't know why the word forgiving came, and that's a part of it, but it's more than just like a forgiving piece of me. It's this feminine piece that I think that I suppressed for so long because we honor so much the masculine as a society, right? And I think that we're definitely moving away from that. But this part that was very soft and very sensitive and very flowy and very like kind of, I don't want to say nurturing, that's not really the right word, but maybe nurturing of like the self. And it's not to say I'm not nurturing towards others, but more like nurturing towards my own being and my own self and having compassion and holding space. So I feel like that's the part of me that I really needed to integrate, and in whatever this time is, has really been for me to meet that part and face it. And I think that when we're not connected with the feminine, so regardless of how you identify, but the feminine piece in us is the piece that allows us to receive. A lot of times we're looking to grow ourselves, grow our business, enhance our relationships, but when we're not in touch with that receptive sort of part of us, we need to give, but we also need to hold the space to receive as well. And that's where a lot of our shadows come from. So anyway, I hope that, again, you're kind of staying grounded this week, if that's possible for you, you know, but really like coming back into the tools. Like I've been doing Kundalini meditations every single day. It's just 10 minutes, which is very manageable. And so I've been doing that every single day. I try and do tapping. So I've been doing tapping like every other day, but tapping has been a huge part of Empower. So I've been doing that every single week. I've been spending time with my kids, getting outside. The weather here has been absolutely beautiful. So definitely taking advantage of that, because pretty soon we're either going to have storms or it's going to be really hot. So there's this time period here in North Texas that just sort of not tune in, but take advantage of the like 70-degree weather, which is sort of like our fall, I guess. We really don't get a fall. We oscillate between really hot and then like ice. So I guess the springtime here is really the time that we can sort of take advantage of that. But okay, so today what we're going to be talking about is Neptune. And with all of this Pisces energy, Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, and I'm going to get into sort of a history of Neptune, what it represents, and all that stuff, but Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So originally I was going to talk about Venus retrograde, but I just feel like right now, specifically as we're in the spring equinox, we're sort of dancing between beginnings and endings, right? Between Pisces and Aries energy. And Neptune, again, Neptune making this shift into Aries, and it hasn't been here in 165 years or so. This is really this energy where it feels very soft. And I think that, you know, what I've been moving through myself in kind of connecting with this softer, feminine, slower part of me, Neptune has really been supporting that, right? And so this energy is like deeply transformative, right? Mystical, psychic. The energy of Neptune really is it is dreamy, right? It can feel a little elusive because Pisces in itself is like the unseen, right? It's our dream world. It's illusions. It's spirituality. Neptune is known as the dissolver, right? The dissolution of boundaries, the dissolution of the ego. Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, right? So it's taking us beyond personal love, more into divine universal love. And we're currently in gate 25 in human design, and Neptune is in gate 25, and as is the sun is in gate 25. And the city, which is the highest expression of gate 25, is universal love. So this is so resonant right now, like this teaching, I guess like this teaching here is especially in gate 25 is this universal love. The shadow of this is constriction. So it's like anywhere where you feel constriction in your body, right? You're not allowing love in. Like fear is only the absence of love, right? So it's like, where can we bring love? Where can we integrate love into these moments? Even if it's just taking a deep breath and like letting go, releasing. Like realizing where you're feeling constricted, where you're not letting it in, where you're feeling more fear, where you're putting your attention, like all these things matter, right? And the gift here is acceptance. Can we accept the parts of ourselves, sort of like that tower moment? Can we accept, like we have that constriction, we have the crumbling. Now we've seen this part of ourselves. Can we accept the parts of ourselves that we're holding onto fear, that were constricted, that maybe we weren't trusting, maybe we weren't letting it in, we weren't accepting ourselves, we weren't seeing ourselves, right? Can we accept that so that we can move into this universal love, right? Neptune can also bring confusion, escapism, delusion, right? It's sort of where we surrender or where we can deceive ourselves. Right. And so with all this moving through Pisces, we have noticed a lot of escapism. I know my Instagram has more often than not over the last couple of weeks told me I've reached my limit and I've ignored it. Usually I'll be like, okay, because usually I hit that like right before I'm about to shut down at night. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Now I feel like I'm hitting it at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, damn it. I have so much more left to do like on social media as far as like posting and creating content and stuff like that. And that's a piece of why I've been on there more. I've been creating more content and things like that. But I'm still like noticing when that comes up and I'm hitting that ignore button. That's like so Pisces, right? We're just like escaping, we're ignoring, right? We're kind of like maybe in that way, I'm like, oh, well, I'm just creating content. I'm like sort of deceiving myself to the fact that I've been on there for however many hours. But yeah, so like after now, it's been in Pisces for over a decade. It's moving into Aries where it hasn't been since 1861. And so, okay, so what does this mean, right? Like how does Neptune show up in your chart? How do we work with Neptune? How do we work with the energy rather than like getting lost in the confusion, right? So we're going to dive into that here. So first of all, this already introduced it a little bit, but like, let's just go back to the basics. Like what is Neptune, right? So Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces, which the traditional ruler of Pisces is Jupiter, but Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces, and it's associated with water, mysticism, spirituality, again, that dissolution of the ego, dissolution of boundaries. It's sort of like that veil between worlds, right? It governs intuition, artistic inspiration, higher consciousness, but also, again, illusion, deception, and escapism. These are all parts of Neptune. So Neptune was discovered in 1846. And it was really coinciding with that rise in spiritualism, the romantic era in art, literature, deep fascination with like the unseen. So Neptune's cycles are about dissolving old structures and opening the collective to that higher consciousness, to that divine, right? It can also be a little confusion and illusion, right? So Neptune takes about 165 years to move through the zodiac. So it spends about 13 to 14 years in each sign. So the last time, again, Neptune was in Aries was 1861 to 1875. During this time, we saw the U.S., the Civil War, a shift in identity, and breaking down of illusions. This period was really like bold action, which can give us a clue about what's coming, right? Because this is the beautiful thing about astrology, is that it really gives us an opportunity to study history. And astrology really is like when we're predicting things with astrology, all we're doing is looking at patterns through history. So we can look at like what's happened the last time. It's not to say that that's what's happening now, right? Like we all have free will, things have changed, times have changed. And this is the thing about history. If we don't learn from history, we're going to repeat it, right? But Neptune is really pulling us to raise our consciousness. So through all the times, all the signs and, everything that's happened in the last 65 years, is not to say that like this is what's going to happen, but this is like what's happened last time. Okay. So Neptune again has been in Pisces since 2011. So this has really been an era of spiritual awakening, right? Like artistic revival, deep disillusionment, So when we think about like spiritual awakening, oh my gosh, in 2011, like talk about astrology and human design, like nobody knew what that was, right? Now, at least everybody has an awareness of these practices. We've seen such like a boom of like yoga in the West. We've seen holistic Eastern medicines come into the West, right? This has been like a really big time where we've seen this rise in spirituality, mysticism, alternative healing, right? Like these sort of practices have been becoming more widespread. But there's also alternately, right? We've also seen this like big rise in escapism through social media, right? We went from like, I think when I went to college, this is definitely aging me, but when I went to college in 2004, Facebook was like just for colleges. There was like nothing else. Like maybe MySpace. I don't know if MySpace was before that, but like we didn't have smartphones, right? It was like you had to get on your laptop to log in. So it wasn't like as widespread. But since then, obviously, social media has become this huge thing, right? Which is so beautiful because we can stay connected to people all over the world. But also, right, we're getting lost in virtual realities. AI is becoming bigger, right? We're seeing a lot of teens now, like young kids who are just like lost in the scroll of TikTok and Instagram. And I am a huge believer that it is what you make it. I don't think that any of these social media apps in themselves are like evil, and everybody's got a different opinion. This is my opinion. I think that, right, the algorithm reflects you. The algorithm mirrors you. Gary Vee talks about this a lot, right? Where he's like, if you go to like his page, he's like, it's just sports and this and that and the other thing, like inspiration. Whereas if you go to somebody who's maybe going down the doom scrolling, like that's all they're going to see. And so I think like being really aware, like how are you using this, right? Are you using this for spiritual enhancement? Like when I go on my Instagram, if I see something that makes me feel a little off, like I mute it. I just mute that account, and I move on. Like I want things that are inspiring me. I want things that are like making me laugh, right? So that's sort of like what my Instagram is like. And again, there are things on there. Like I do follow some like sort of conspiracy things, but when it sort of goes down like the dark hole, then I'm kind of like, oh, I'm gonna like mute you for a minute and like reset my algorithm. And we've also been seeing some collective disillusionment, right? Like especially lately, I mean, really since like the last few elections, right? This truth, like illusion, like what is truth? Where is this misinformation, blurred realities, like not quite knowing like what's what. Like when we watch the media, everybody's got a different perspective. Everybody's got a different lens. Everybody's got different opinions. Everybody puts forth like different, it's just, there's so much that can be really confusing, right? So with Neptune and Pisces also can dissolve structures, right? Really making it hard to see things clearly. I like to say we see things through rose-colored glasses with Neptune. So we may have been feeling a little bit lost, a little ungrounded, over idealistic in certain areas of our lives. And maybe just like this Piscean sort of like dream state energy, right? That's sort of the Neptune influence, right? As being the ruler of Pisces over the last since, 2011. So again, okay, so now Neptune is moving into Aries. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have my little calendar here, but I think it's like Friday or Saturday. So tomorrow or Saturday, as this comes out on Thursday. So it'll move there, obviously, 2025 to 2039. So what happens when Neptune moves into Aries, right? Again, we sort of like briefly touched on what happened the last time Pisces was in Aries, but Aries is a cardinal fire sign, right? This is fire. This is initiation, action, identity. It's leadership. It's the self, right? Aries is the I am. Neptune is here to infuse that energy with idealism, spiritual drive, and like a new kind of visionary, maybe like dreamy sort of leadership energy. It's going to be all about radical shifts from dreamlike, boundaryless nature of Pisces into this like fiery action, initiatory energy, right? So maybe we'll notice that like spiritual warrior energy, right? Because Aries is the warrior. So instead of like passive spirituality, right? This is like embodied action, living our beliefs, not just like thinking about them. And so much of what I've been talking about lately is embodiment. We have to be these things. We have to pull it into our body and not just think about it. And that's sort of like that energy. New movements, right? Like, so Aries again is that first sign of the zodiac. So we could see like bold, radical new movement, spirituality, activism, personal identity, themes around the self-leadership, these types of things. And maybe illusions in identity, right? Because this is the disillusion of the ego, the disillusion of boundaries. This is a dissolver. So it might create illusions around individuality, ego, leadership. So maybe we don't really see it, like who's real, who's pretending, who am I? This could be a really big question. Who am I now, right? And then this like self versus the collective, because Aries is about me, but Neptune dissolves the ego. So it's kind of this really interesting dynamic. There could be friction between individualism and unity, like, and the collective. So questions around this, like, are we moving towards enlightened self or getting lost in narcissism or self-delusion, right? Like, can we see ourselves clearly? So just some things, obviously there's always a higher and a lower expression of everything. These are just like potentials, possibilities. It's just like the energetic fingerprint, I guess, if that makes sense. So collectively, we could, again, that rise in spiritual activism, leadership, again, that warrior mystic, intuitive pioneers, revolutionary identity shifts, right? Like, how do we see ourselves? Gender roles, self-expression, purpose, right? Like questioning all of these things. Tech and AI illusions, right? I think we're seeing a lot with AI coming around, ChatGPT, like all these different things, right? Aries rules like identity. So we, again, might struggle with the rise of like virtual identities. Like, who are we beyond all of this stuff? And really like a deep call to embody your beliefs, right? Like less kind of floating in the ethers and really grounding it in and like doing it. And then, okay, so that's sort of like the gist of what Neptune and Aries might be calling us towards. So now, how can you work with it in your chart? Because we all have Neptune in our chart, right? And Neptune was really the first planet that we discovered that we could not see with the naked eye. So even Uranus, it was hidden in the sky, but like if it was a really clear night and you had like the right tools, like you could see it. But Neptune was the first one that we just could not see, right? Which is why this is really about the unseen. Because we could not, that we had to have like the telescope and all this stuff to be able to see Neptune. So it was the first planet that we discovered that we could not see with our naked eye under the right conditions. So where is Neptune in your chart? Like, grab your chart if you don't have it. And then also within this, look at what your human design gate is in Neptune too, and see what center it's in, if it's in a defined center, unconscious center, or it's not unconscious center, undefined center, which is unconscious, but undefined center. But wherever Neptune is in your chart, this is where you sort of like merge with the divine, right? You're dissolving boundaries here. You're experiencing dreams, a little disillusionment. And so again, find where Neptune is. Look at the house that it's in. Look if you have any planets there, if there's any aspects to it. This is really where you're like going to be naturally attuned to higher consciousness, but you could also experience that like fog, that confusion, that lack of clarity. So I have this in Capricorn. So I have Mars in Capricorn, but I also have Neptune in Capricorn. And I always kind of forget that I have Neptune in Capricorn, which right in that sentence alone is so Neptunian, right? Like I just forget that I have it there because it's like I don't see it half the time. But it really like I get this like fire to move on these areas, you know, like Capricorn, it's your work ethic, right? This is like your career. This is what you're doing. It's perseverance. And sometimes I forget that like I have like such a deep ability to like really get serious in that area of my life, right? Again, check your aspects. So the aspects really show how it plays out, right? So we have squares and oppositions, which are a little bit more challenging, can bring like extra confusion. But then we have trines and sextiles, which are more harmonious. So this might make it even more, it might enhance the intuitive nature of the Neptune, right? And then also look at where Aries is in your chart, because that's where Neptune is really going to be moving through over the next, 13, 14 years. So this is the area of your life that will undergo spiritual awakening, shifts in identity, possible illusions, right? This is all happening over the next 14 years. So you're really noticing where that is. For me personally, I have my North Node in Aries in my 9th house. So this is travel, this is education, this is philosophy. Again, this is spirituality. This is my purpose, my direction, like the themes that I need to embody. And so Neptune moving through here could either have me drop into that in a more deeper way or just make me feel really confused around it, which is kind of not funny, but I've spent the last, 18 months when we had the nodal axis in Aries and Libra really being so triggered about how I was supposed to lead and guide and show up as myself. And now Neptune is going to come in and just make that even more confusing. So, this is it's all part of the journey. It's all part of the plan, right? So while Neptune is in Pisces, some really great practices that you can have to stay grounded, because we want to stay grounded here, right? So grounding rituals, right? Like Aries is fire. So really balancing it with water and earth practices. So this is going to be meditation, baths, movement, maybe yoga, maybe gentle movement. It doesn't have to be like if we're doing really intense like HIIT exercises, this could like increase the fire of Aries, but like slow movement. How can we go for walks in nature? Maybe you go swimming, maybe you're doing yoga, Pilates, something that is going to be a little bit more grounding. Again, conscious action. So instead of just like blindly doing things, like really question it. Like, Am I projecting? Is this real? Is this where I want to go? Is this actually what I want to do? Does everything line up? Does it make sense? Like, I know it's a lot of questions to ask when you want to move and do something, but if we can sort of take that pause, take that moment before we're just like blindly doing things, because again, Neptune creates delusion. So we won't necessarily see things for what they are. So we might need to pull back and be like, okay, do I actually want to do this? Does this make sense? Am I actually seeing this correctly, or am I feeling confused? Am I just blindly going forward because all this fire is coming up, or am I seeing things incorrectly? Am I misunderstanding things and taking action? Am I being the warrior for something that actually I misunderstood, right? So kind of asking those questions can be really helpful. And I think the most important for no matter what, regardless of whether this is Neptune and Pisces energy or whatever, Neptune and Aries energy, protect your energy, right? Neptune can bring deception. Discernment is so important here, especially in like leadership or spiritual circles. Discernment, please. Discern what's true and what's not, right? Protect yourself. Whether you're doing a bubble. I like to do this. I read it in a book called The Art of Psychic Protection. I can't remember who wrote it. It's on my bookshelf and I don't want to go grab it now. But one practice that I took from that, like, first of all, I highly recommend the book. So I'll link it in the show notes so you can go grab it. But there was one practice that is recommended in the book, and it's visualizing a green translucent triangle, like pyramid, around your house, around you, I'll do it around my house, and then I do it around my bed and my kids' beds in at night before I fall asleep, to really just like protect our energy, protect our dream space, right? You can also sort of visualize a bubble around you during the day, right? If you notice any holes, like really getting in tune with your energy, if you don't notice any like energetic leaks, just literally plugging them up. These things will really all protect your energy. And then, so that's really like how we can work with it in our chart. Just like, remember, I think it's really important to like question, like, what's real, what's not, where am I maybe feeling confused, what's like actually true, what is the truth, right? Because again, really has to do with just like mistruths, misunderstandings coming out and creating this friction. So really like coming back into that. It's really, this can be bold shifts though, right? Like this can really move us forward if we're really using the energy correctly. So it's about being intentional. It's about discerning, living our truth, embodying our beliefs, right? And again, discerning what's real and what's not. So I'm going to give you a couple journal prompts, three journal prompts to sort of like explore this within your chart, within your life, and maybe just give you something to come back to. So the first journal prompt I'm going to give you is, where in my life am I being called to embody my dreams instead of just thinking about them? So yes, New Year's is obviously January 1st in Western society, and this is not really the astrological New Year, right? Like Aries season is the astrological New Year. New Year's and Capricorn season, this is more like the sort of planning, getting structures in place, getting organized, holding the vision, getting clear on the vision. And now with Aries, we're moving. Now is the time to like go and do. Although right now when we're moving into Aries, we have Venus and Mercury in retrograde. So it's not really the time to like do things, but we've had so much of this dreamy energy, so much of this Pisces dreamy energy. Now it's like, okay, we've hopefully gotten clear. We've held the vision. Now, how can we show the fuck up? How can we actually take action instead of just thinking about the thing? So then number 2, what illusions about myself or my path am I ready to dissolve? So again, this is sort of that what's real versus illusion, right? Like what can I actually, and let me be clear, I do think that we need a certain amount of delusion, that delulu energy. We do need that, especially when it comes to like, and I'm not saying you're not worthy, but like self-worth, like sometimes it is that fake it till you make it energy. Like if you want something, if your dream is so grand and so big, like this is part of manifestation work, right? Like how can I bring in that being, that version of myself into now, right? Like bringing it in now. But we also, again, have to discern like what is real and what is just like, where am I ready to dissolve things? So again, that question was, what illusions about myself or my path am I ready to dissolve? Really, again, I think that really just comes down to discernment. And so then number 3, where am I being invited to step into spiritual leadership on your terms? Because this is Aries, right? This is your terms. This is about you, but we're also bringing in the collective. So if you're called to that, and obviously not everybody's in some sort of spiritual space. Some people are maybe finding their spirituality. Some people, whatever that means to you, right? Like whatever that means to you. And I do believe I was sitting in meditation the other night and I was praying, and it's just like, I do think that when it comes to embodiment, when it comes to anything, I do believe that we need to believe in something, right? There's something higher than ourselves that we really do need to lean into to guide us. And I think that's why religion over time has been so popularized, right? Like there is something within that. I don't necessarily subscribe to religion, but I am deeply spiritual. I have my own beliefs. I 100% like believe that there's something there. But all that being said, I don't go to church. That's sort of like part of my past. But the times that I have been into church, there is something there, right? And I think that my perspective is we all are called to what we need in this lifetime to connect us with something higher. So maybe you are religious, right? Maybe you resonate with whatever it is, right? Like whatever religion you're tied to, that is your path in this life. That is your path to connection with the divine. Maybe you're spiritual, right? Maybe religion didn't serve you on that way, but spirituality does. So it doesn't matter whatever terminology or label you want to put on it, right? But like, what does spiritual leadership mean to you, and how are you integrating that in your life? So for me, that really means like having people, yes, connect with their body, but also understand that there's something higher than themselves that can guide them there, right? If we can just listen to it, if we can stop, slow down, and listen to that voice, that knowing, because it's a whisper, right? Like love is a whisper. Love doesn't yell. Love doesn't shout. Love doesn't like push us around. It's going to be quiet. So how can we just like sit and listen to that? So I'd love to hear how you're experiencing this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If this resonated, again, share it with a friend if you think it'll help them. And yeah, you can message me on Instagram, drop a comment, like wherever you're listening. If you're on Spotify, also rate, review, subscribe, which is so helpful for the podcast. Spotify, it's literally just those 5 stars or whatever you feel would be good. And I do want to say tomorrow, so I've let my newsletter and my broadcast channel know, I am officially doing a live round of Holistic Human Design Academy. So it's been like a self-paced course, but I've had a handful of people ask me if I was going to do another live round. And so I sat with it and I feel so lit up by it. So I am doing another live round that starts April 7th. Doors are open. The cart is open. You can go sign up for it now. We will begin again April 7th. So Holistic Human Design Academy is 8 modules. In the live rounds, it is about 3 months because we do take integration time. We have weekly Q&As. You get Voxer support in there, so 24/7 Voxer support. It's such a beautiful space to move through with a community because literally you are what makes the live rounds magic. Your connection with each other, your connection with the information, we're literally co-creating to create this absolutely beautiful space. So if you're interested in that, the link is down below and you can use the code WHDA Spring and you'll get 20% off until the 28th. I'm cutting off the discount code on the 28th, but if you sign up now, I've already got people jumping in there. I'm so excited. I feel so good about this live round. It's been a while since I've done a live round, but I responded to something, I sat with it through my authority, and it just feels right. So again, you can go down to the show notes below, use the code WHDA Spring, get 20% off until March 28th, and we begin April 7th.